I'm 81 years old. 3 months ago, my wife died. Her name was Helen. We were married for 54 years. At her funeral, something happened that I still can't stop thinking about. Something that made me question everything I thought I knew about success, about legacy, and about what a life well lived actually looks like. People stood up to speak about Helen. Friends, family, neighbors, one by one, they shared stories and memories, and not a single person mentioned my career. Not one word about what I did for a living. Not one word about the company I built, the awards I won, the money I made, 43 years of work, and at my wife's funeral, it was like none of it existed. That silence broke something in me. I know what you're thinking. It was Helen's funeral. Of course, they talked about Helen. That's how funerals work. But that's not what broke me. What broke me was realizing that when my turn comes, I might not have stories like hers. No soup deliveries, no Sunday calls, no grocery store friendships, just awards, plaques, things that look impressive but don't make anyone cry. Let me tell you who I was. For 43 years, I was an executive. Started at the bottom, worked my way up. By 50, I was running a division. By 55, I was CEO. I built that company into something. We were in magazines. I gave speeches. People in the industry knew my name. I was proud of that. Really proud. I thought that was my legacy. The thing I'd be remembered for. The thing that made my life mean something. I sacrificed a lot for that career. Missed dinners, missed weekends, missed anniversaries. There was always another meeting, another crisis, another deal that couldn't wait. Helen understood. At least, I told myself she did. She never complained. She raised our kids. She kept the house. She waited. She waited a lot. I know what you might be thinking. My career paid for that house. It gave Helen the freedom to stay home, to raise the kids, to be the person everyone at that funeral talked about. And you're right, I provided. But providing isn't the same as being present. You can give someone everything and still give them nothing. Helen didn't need a bigger house or a nicer car. She needed me at dinner. She needed me on weekends. She needed me to be there, not just to pay for things. And I wasn't there. I told her we'd have time later. When I retired, when things slowed down, then we'd travel. Then we'd do all the things we'd been putting off. I retired at 68. We had 13 years together after that. 13 years out of 54. And even then, I was consulting, serving on boards, always something. Then she got sick, and then she was gone. The funeral was on a Tuesday, cold morning, gray sky, the kind of weather that matches how you feel inside. The church was full. I didn't expect that. Helen was quiet. She wasn't the type to have hundreds of friends. But people came, people I hadn't seen in years, people I didn't even know she knew. And they started to speak. Her sister went first. She talked about how Helen used to call her every Sunday morning. For 40 years, every single Sunday, just to check in, just to talk. I didn't know that. 40 years of Sunday calls. They probably happened while I was in my home office, catching up on emails. Even on Sundays I was working. I was in the same house. I just wasn't paying attention. Then our neighbor, Patricia, she's 76 now, she talked about how Helen brought her soup every week after her husband died. For 2 years, every week, Helen never mentioned it to me. Or maybe she did, and I wasn't listening. I don't know which is worse. Then a woman I'd never seen before. She said she met Helen at the grocery store 15 years ago. They started talking in the checkout line. Helen invited her for coffee. That woman said Helen was the first friend she made after moving to town. The first person who made her feel like she belonged. Story after story. And they were all like this. Small kindnesses, phone calls, coffee, soup, showing up, listening, making people feel seen. Nobody talked about achievements. Nobody talked about what Helen accomplished. Because Helen didn't accomplish things, she just loved people, quietly, consistently, without needing anyone to notice. And then my daughter spoke, and she said something I'll never forget. She said, "Mom taught me that love isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up, every day, in small ways." She showed up for everyone, even when it was hard, even when no one was watching. Then she paused, and she looked at me, and she said, "I hope we can all learn from her. I hope we can all be a little more like Mom." She didn't say anything about me. She didn't say, "Dad worked hard to provide for us." She didn't say, "Dad built a successful career." She didn't say anything, and I understood why, because I wasn't there. Not really. I was working. I was building something I thought mattered. And Helen was home, doing the things that actually mattered. The things people remember. The things that last. After the funeral, I went home to an empty house. I sat in the kitchen, Helen's kitchen really. She spent more time there than I ever did. I looked around, and I saw her everywhere. The curtains she picked out, the magnets on the fridge, a grocery list in her handwriting, still stuck to the counter. Milk, eggs, call Patricia. Call Patricia. Even her grocery list had someone else's name on it. And I thought about my office. The awards on the wall, the plaques, the framed magazine covers, all the proof of my success. Nobody at the funeral mentioned any of it, because none of it mattered to them. It only mattered to me. I've been thinking a lot about legacy since Helen died. I used to think legacy was what you built, what you achieved, what you left behind that had your name on it. Maybe there's some truth to that. The company I built still employs people. The work I did had value. I'm not saying it didn't, but that's not the legacy people remember. Not the people who love you. To them, legacy is simpler. Legacy is how you made them feel. Legacy is the Sunday phone calls, the soup after someone's husband dies, the conversation in the grocery store that turns into a 15-year friendship. Legacy is in the small things. Done consistently, without needing credit. Helen understood this. I didn't. And now I have a house full of awards and an empty chair at the kitchen table. I think about the time I wasted, the years I spent chasing something that didn't matter as much as I thought it did. Helen asked me once if I'd slow down. This was maybe 20 years ago. The kids were grown, she said. We could travel. We could spend more time together. What are you still chasing? I said. Just a few more years. I'm almost where I want to be. I don't even remember where I wanted to be. Some title, some number, some goals that seemed so important at the time. She didn't argue. She just nodded, and she waited. She waited for me for 20 more years, and I gave her 13. I see young people today, working constantly, building careers, chasing promotions, sacrificing everything for success. And I want to tell them something. The same thing I wish someone had told me 40 years ago. You're trading the things that matter for things that don't. You're missing dinners for meetings that won't matter in 5 years. You're telling the people you love to wait. But I know they won't listen. I wouldn't have listened at their age either. You don't understand until it's too late. Until you're sitting in an empty house, looking at awards nobody cares about, wishing you'd made different choices. If I could go back and talk to my 40-year-old self, here's what I'd say. Stop missing dinners. Stop missing weekends. Stop telling her you'll have time later. Stop thinking your career is your legacy. It's not. Nobody will remember your job title. Nobody will remember your promotions. Nobody will stand at your funeral and talk about your quarterly earnings. Start showing up. Start paying attention. Start doing the small things, the phone calls, the coffee dates, the conversations that seem unimportant but aren't. You can have a career and a life, but you have to choose to have both. I only chose one. Start now. Not when you retire. Not when things slow down. Now. Because one day she won't be there, and you'll have all the success in the world and no one to share it with. I'm 81 years old. Helen is gone. I can't get those years back. I can't make different choices now. But I can tell you this. At your funeral, nobody will talk about your career. They won't mention your salary, title, or achievements. They'll talk about how you made them feel. They'll talk about whether you showed up. They'll talk about the small kindnesses that you probably forgot, but they never did. What will they say about you? Will they have stories to tell? Moments to remember? Or will there be silence? The answer depends on what you do today, not tomorrow, today. If this stayed with you, share it with someone who's working too hard to notice what they're missing. I'm 81. I have more regrets to confess, and not much time left to confess them.